I just wanted to pop on and be present for a minute. A number of you already know who I am. You were present when the crucifixion started. You were present at the resurrection and all the moments in between. So you already know who I am. This is about just showing everybody else that wasn't present. Those of you that weren't present, it's not that you are somehow spiritually cut off or locked out. Even those with in the light, it can be an emotional experience that the crucifixion had to happen again. But it's finished. It's done. I'm not concerned. Like I just said, I know who I am. So if you're looking for me to prove who I am by doing this or doing that, like beyond that. People already know who I am. You know, there were things I was doing behind the scenes that a lot of you were not aware of. Those of you that are, you can already attest to it. And I told you then when we had that conversation, and I'm saying it again, if you choose to talk about your experience and what you witnessed, you know, I guess your testimony, if you want to share your story and how that helped you and helped you strengthen your faith and your renew your hope, and you know, even those of you that you know are still struggling with certain things in your journeys, and I know who you are. Like I said, it's your choice, so I'm not gonna tell you what you can and cannot share. I've always known who I am. But I will say, I'm just over it. You know, I, walked in this path. And, I'll get into more details later. You know, there's 2 other videos that I uploaded already last year. You know, they're PowerPoints. They're both kind of like done a little differently, just because I know for some of you, like things will flow better if you watch the one versus the other and vice versa. And that's okay, because, I plan on doing more videos like this so I can have the conversation. Just so you know, keeping the comments off. I'm not doing live chats. I'm not doing live reactions or anything like that. I don't need, commentary, and I don't need co-signers, if you will. I already know. And, a number of people over the years, I'll be 40 years old in a few months in April. And, the last time I checked, when I was going through this process, what blew people's mind is, when you read the Bible and it talks about, or gives you an idea of who I am, or you hear people talking about it with whatever dreams or whatever signs that you've received over time, it pales in comparison when it's face to face. The ability that I have to know what you're going to ask, know what you're going to be concerned with, know where you're kind of confused at, and know that I can speak it without you saying a word. So that's pretty much how I prefer to communicate, where I do the talking and everybody else just takes a break and listens, because you'll get what is meant for you. And even if you don't get it today, because I'm kind of not trying to get into too much, I just want to try to neutralize things. And that's because last year, when I did try to go live and do this, I got elevated too quickly. But I did keep my word that I would stay out of the election in 2024. I wasn't getting involved. I said that from the beginning. I was not involved at all. I wanted to see where, you all were at. I wanted to see what choices you were going to make. Those of you that, woke up at the last minute, those of you that started having those epiphanies, like I said, I kept quiet for a reason. A number of you think that the world is bad. A number of you say, like, oh, there's a lot of evil in the world. Like, I don't think you understand. Like, this entire world was so dark, it made tar look like dirty water. That's how dark the world was. But I kept my word. I kept my word, as I said I would. There are people that they have their own evidence as far as showing who I am. It just so happened that where the resurrection took place, there were like security cameras around that probably caught quite a bit of it. Like I said, that stuff will get released when it gets released. I'm not in possession of any of it. I don't need it. It's not, I know who I am, so it's not for me. It's for all of you. Needing confirmation that I am who I am. Those of you that have been following along know that, in 1982, I believe it was a couple years before I came down in mortal form, when they found my blood from the last time that I was crucified. They traced the DNA to Germany, and then from there they stopped because I didn't want to be revealed beforehand. But there's certain people that kept going and just kept it hidden from the public, because I don't work on your guys' time. I work on mine. That's how it goes. No different than a number of you that, walk around and tell people, when they start paying bills in your house, they can have an opinion. Well, when you're the one that gets crucified and has to go through all this, and then comes back, being resurrected, and has to keep doing all this, then you can give me your opinion. Until then, I don't want to hear it. This is about you listening. Lean not on your own understanding. And if you're not the one being crucified and having to go through all this, your opinion is just that, an opinion. And everybody's got one. So many of you, it was just mind-boggling the way you would take the Bible and use it as a weapon for other people. And I've had this conversation before with people. Everybody has that, if you will, come to Jesus moment when they're ready. But it's not something that can be forced. Just like when you plant, a bulb, a tulip bulb in your garden, you don't determine when it sprouts up. All you can do is water it, make sure it gets enough light, you're feeding the soil, and hoping that it has the nutrients and it's receiving the resources it needs to grow and flourish. But you don't get to dictate when it sprouts up through the garden. So what makes you think that you're going to be able to dictate, whether or not somebody has that moment, that come to Jesus moment, something that is very personal, something that is very spiritual, that pertains to the individual? You can't force it. But it just amazed me how people can sit there and just, oh, that's wrong. The Bible says X, Y, and Z and ABC. You're supposed to do da 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 da. Like, yeah, congratulations. Thank you for sharing with us that you're reading the Bible. Maybe you should read it a bit more and speak a little less on it. It boggles me. Like, of all this, all sins are forgivable except one, and that's blasphemy. Like, if you're not me, I mean, this is my moral form, but if you're not me, you don't have a say. You should be listening to understand versus listening to judge. Because the moment you pass judgment on somebody, you are essentially committing the unforgivable sin. Everybody can have their own viewpoints and their own spiritual beliefs of what pertains to them and their soul. But what works for you doesn't work for everybody. And everybody's journey is different. I'm trying to stay calm and just keep the conversation light, only because last year when I tried to go live, and I did, but I got elevated too quick, and those simple storms turned into tornadoes, and it caused destruction. I'm already aware of what's going on. And those that were, present when I was doing, the time traveling from where I was mortally at the time when we were having this discussion, they already know. If they want to speak on it, that's on them. But the last time I checked, it's walk by faith, not by sight. So if you need confirmation from every single person that was involved to prove to you who I am, you probably should spend more time on your knees in prayer and less time playing a game of how do I call this? Tag you're it. I think the saddest part is the fact that people have allowed, like money, for example, to rule so much of their lives. It dictates whether or not, you carry on like friendships or relationships because somebody may be struggling, or maybe they're, choosing to work on themselves. And if you're working on yourself and you're working to heal your traumas and you're doing the work, like obviously you're maintaining. Every now and then you might need a little, a little help every now and then. But for the most part, like, it's like getting pissed off with somebody because the weight that they're carrying seems to be more debilitating for them. And instead of you just helping to see them through and, just being there, just being present, sometimes you choose, well, I'm going to walk away and let you do your thing, and that'll be that. I've had, people that literally told me, over the years, if you are who you say you are, then you'll do it. You'll go through and allow yourself to be crucified and resurrected, and you'll forgive everybody, and we promise we won't do it anymore. Like, you know, and sadly, none of those people are in mortal form. So, crucifixion is not a mockery. It's not something to make light of. It's literally somebody making the sacrifice because the parents that brought the child into the world failed. You know, generations before struggled. And if you guys are actually doing the work, you'll know that the world's been in a dark place for a long time. That's why a lot of people pay attention to the United States, because the United States birthed democracy. Do you understand what that means? Like if you go to Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, when all other nations were in the mindset of a slave and, you know, doing as they were told, whether they liked it or not, you know, they have the money, they have the power. The United States birthed democracy, and it wasn't easy. I mean, there's a lot of spiritual cleaning that had to be done, and a lot of paths that needed to be forged ahead. And yeah, mistakes were made, but no better or worse than any other part of this world. So I don't understand where the judgment's coming from, especially from a number of you. As I said, I'm trying to stay as calm as can be, because for a number of you, I can start reading you and exposing your deepest, darkest secrets, especially those of you that choose to pass judgment. I want to be cautious, because I've lit a number of people up already over the years. And the only saving grace is that I was still finishing the path. But that time's up. There's a lot of things that are going to get covered in the different videos, and things that'll help you to better understand and better, you know, because I know for a number of you, you just kind of just go through the process. You just keep reading the Bible over and over again. You keep up with your prayers, and you put your best foot forward. And, you know, even though some things don't really make complete sense, like you're still in that process of learning, and you just kind of like submit to that fact. But like for a number of you that I've had these conversations with, you know, already know. Like I said, I just wanted to um, be present for this video. I will be doing some more. Um, choosing to do things my own way and on my own terms, as I do. Um, like I said, you know, as this video circulates and other videos, you may find more and more people coming forward with the evidence or the testimony, or, you know, because there's enough of it. Remember, a couple of you were trying to understand the crucifixion and what that was about. And if you go back to the last time, the way it used to be was, you know, like I said, this world was dark. So, you know, what they did is, you know, anybody that chose to defy and, you know, essentially say no, you know, it could be, you know, doing the right thing, and, you know, people are like, well, that doesn't mean anything, nobody's here to save you, kind of thing. And they just kind of like crucified people because they used it as a psychological manipulation. So like when you're going through the streets and you're going up the mountain, you know, everybody's watching you, and it's, you know, the guards, security, I call them idiots, um, that just sat there forcing everybody else to watch, to create that perception and instill that fear within people that you either do as you're told or this is going to be your fate. But the difference between them and me is I resurrected. And that's what sparked the whole, difference between the soul and the mortal flesh. That's what separates me from all the others that were crucified. And for those of you that have difficulty understanding, it's not like they, I need you to understand. They weren't clean about anything at all. They would literally use like the iron stakes that they would make. And they weren't always like if you look at how like screws and nails and bolts are made today, like back then, like it was all made by hand. Like you were beating the stake, if you will, over an open flame. You were doing it that way, and they would use the stakes that they crucified everybody else with. They would reuse those same stakes, never cleaned them or anything. It just like, this is the group of stakes that we use when we're crucifying people. And they only replaced them with another stake. And it wasn't a brand new one. It was just one that was already worn out and rusted. And that's what they used. So the one that went into my wrist, because a lot of people think that it went through my hand. No, I didn't. It went through the wrist, because just like now, like when you look at your hand and look at your wrist, you can see the veins in your wrist, and the goal is to get you to bleed out. The more blood, the better, to incite the fear in everybody else. And the iron, the rusted iron stake that they used, like my left hand had like a piece. It was like this. It's like maybe about this much separated. So if you can imagine like a stake that went through, like there was a piece of it, like because it had rusted so much, like the metal started to separate, and that went through my left wrist. And I remember just lying there, and then I realized I had it is what it is. So you just focus on your breathing. And you detach from the mortal flesh and focus on your soul. And before you realize it, you find yourself in a trance where all you hear is just metal hitting metal while you're breathing. That's all you hear. And before I realized it, like I felt the pressure, because like they pull on the one leg to pull it out of socket, so that way when that gets pulled out, the other leg automatically comes out, and then before you know it, they're able to get your feet on top of one another. And before I realized it, like it was done, and I went up. And I'm talking about this recent crucifixion this time. I'm not even talking about back then. It's not so much my flesh that was crucified this time. It was my soul. I still, for those that were there in 2011 when I was mounted up, I just remember being up there, and like when you're up there, you can't see directly below you. You can only see at an angle, because stuck. And I'm watching everybody. And it was this moment of, you read about it in the Bible, you hear people talking about it. But when it's face to face, when you were there in real time when that's happening, it's a completely different ballgame. It's a completely different scenario. And you're conflicted because you can, for you to be there, you're like, did I do something wrong? Was there something that I did? How am I present for this? It was this combination of just shock, fear. People trying to figure out, what could I have done to prevent this? Is there anything I could have done? Even back in 2000 when the crucifixion started. And that's what people don't understand. Like, they get caught up with, like, the 40 days and 40 nights that they're thinking about Noah's Ark. So you have land and sea and the shore in between. "40 days and 40 nights, because a day is like 1,000 years," is more in alignment of the full-term pregnancy of a woman. That's why it's 4 points, 3 paths. Where there's a beginning and there's an end. 3 paths representing the 3 trimesters. Mind, body, and soul. When I took my first breath, it was, like my mother will even tell you, she just looked at me. She had her own experiences, but I remembered every detail of that labor coming out. Even what I did on the way out. I heard the conversations while I was inside of her. And I asked her about it. And she just had to look at me for a minute because she had to remember. And then she kind of looked at me like, how would you know? Even down to her cravings. We already had that conversation. People get stuck on their mortal flesh. So much so that they neglect their souls. And sometimes they don't realize it until it's too late. Like, oh my gosh, I have to do this again. Like, even those that were there when the crucifixion started, because like there was a starting point carrying the cross from one point to the other. The resurrection in 2011 was the finale of me carrying the cross, but I still had to finish the path. So it's 89, 2000, 2011, 2022. And there were things that happened along those journeys in that time period. So at this point, if you go back 40 years to the time that I'm posting this video, I was inside my mother's womb. Finishing the 2nd trimester, going into the 3rd. Or, actually, probably, almost into the 3rd trimester. Like I said, there's many things that will get revealed. And there's truths that are going to get revealed. And I'm not concerned about anybody's feelings. So I'm going to need you to prepare yourselves. If it helps to spray a little starch in your panties, so that way it provides that additional support so they don't bunch up every time I speak truth, go ahead. Whatever works. Don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. It just is what it is. There are people that saw me dead. Oh my gosh. And it's not like this time it happened on a mountainside. This was my soul finishing the cycle from the last time I was crucified. So this is the finale, and it's done. This is where I come out and start doing everything. And I can't stress that enough. Where there's a beginning, there's an end. The moment you take your first breath, the guarantee is you will take your last. But what happens in between that first and last breath is an individual choice. Sometimes things aren't always as they seem. And I know some people feel overwhelmed sometimes because they feel like they're supposed to keep up with it all. Like, no, that's what I do because I know what's going on. I know the path. I know where things are headed. And I don't worry because I know how to lift it up. I know how to fix it. So by all means, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told people that were in the know during this process behind closed doors. Like, you're supposed to follow your heart. When in doubt, go with the flow. And I know a number of you are conditioned by these so-called born-again Christians or so-called leaders of a church preaching from a book they never wrote, profited from a book they never wrote, thinking they're somehow worthy of living a life of luxury like they've suffered. And the sad part is the people that sit there and support that delusional perception. That's the sad part. But the thing is sometimes it's better just to focus on you. Because just like you can mortally bleed, when your mortal flesh is cut, it starts bleeding, right? Well, you can spiritually bleed too. And for those that have difficulty comprehending the difference between light and dark, peace and clarity versus enslavement and evil, if you will, or demonic, whatever you want to call it. The difference being is, for those that don't follow their heart because it's unpredictable, they tell you that. They don't want you following your heart. So if you follow your heart, that means you're going to do the work to heal the wounds in your soul. Which means they can't sniff you out. And the more you do the process and you're healing, the more they're coming at you trying to get in. Whereas if you don't follow your heart, you're just bleeding out. And you find yourself thinking, oh, just don't follow your heart. Think with your head because, I'm living a life of luxury. I don't have any of these problems. It's just because you chose to sell yourself out. That's why. I equate this to um, to a newborn mortal child. The child's born. What do? You're clothing it, you're feeding it, you're carrying it because they can't do it for themselves. So they're relying on you. And then they're going through the process where, they're balancing themselves, learning to crawl and then using the furniture to get their feet ready. And before you know it, they're walking. And then them terribles too start. And they linger to the 3rd year and the 4th year. Sometimes they grow out of it. Sometimes it lingers even more. Some of y'all already know. But it's that curiosity phase, and it's no different than your soul. When you find yourself getting to a point when you submit and you realize, I can't do it anymore. This weight is too great. I need your help. So you submit and you drop to your knees and you start praying. And then you just keep up with the prayers. Morning, noon, and night, and however many times in between. And as you're progressing, you're noticing like you're having, better days, you have your ups and downs, but one day comes along. One day comes along and you find yourself getting hit after hit after hit after hit after hit, and it's never ending. And then finally you did everything done and you're about to get into bed and you start praying. And you thought you had that come to Jesus moment, but you're praying differently. You're more in tune with it. You're releasing more emotions. You're shedding the tears. It's essentially bawling and crying your eyes out. And after a while you're in your prayers, all of a sudden you feel this wetness on your knees. You can't see it mortally, but you spiritually feel it. And you can smell this light, sweet aroma coming from it. And you're thinking, is something leaking? And then all of a sudden you get this urge, like you start touching your knees. And every time you touch your knees, now your hands feel wet. And then you just get this epiphany. Every time you're touching your knees, you're just spreading it all over you. Head to toe, and you're just washing yourself in it. Because you want to feel it everywhere, because you notice every time that blood spreads, you feel calm, you feel peace. And then you start going through the process, like your prayer, before you finish your prayer, it's different. And then your prayers after that are different. Because you find yourself, without realizing that now you're on the path, like, to get to the light. You know what I mean? So what you're doing is you're putting forth the work to grow the light within you. You understand what I mean? You're going from where you're at and you're walking a path, spiritually blind. The only thing you can do is feel, but you can't spiritually see anything. Everything's so dark. You can't read between the lines. You can't do any of that. So you're going down this path to gain the tools and resources you need to create a candle. And then you're sitting there and you're thinking that once you do it, and sometimes this can take days, weeks, months, years. It all depends on the person and their journey. But once you create that candle, you start to think mortally, and you're like, the candle only has so much wick. The wick's only but so long. You only have so much oil. So what do? And every time you get to these points, you make a choice. Do you stay where you're at, or do you keep going? So, obviously the next step is now you're taking that candle and you're using it to help you gain the tools and resources, because you're like, well, I have this little bit of light. I want to grow it. So now you're gaining the tools and resources to gain the table lamp. And I'm saying table lamp, but it could be a lamp of any kind. And all of a sudden, we went from a candle to a lamp. So you can see a little bit more. And those that are so in tuned with this path, they're not even paying attention to what's going on around them. They care less. Somebody come up to you and say, "Did you hear what that person just said?" And you're like, "Huh, who? Oh my gosh, did you see what just happened?" Huh? No, I ain't paying no mind. So anyway, you have that lamp. And then you get the idea of how much more light can I get? So now you're doing the work. And now you're gaining the tools and resources with the help of the lamp to put in that ceiling light. And once, without even realizing it, you're just going through it. You're like, it'll be what it's going to be. Like, I just want to keep drawing this light just because I want to see. And you put that ceiling light in. And all of a sudden, you can see everything. And it has an added bonus. You see, oh, I can make more lamps with that. Oh, I can make more candles with that. And the light, you're just spreading it all over the house. You're like, oh, yes, now I can see. That describes your spiritual growth. It's not about being just ever so and, walking just ever so. It's not what you're supposed to do. I mean, the trees do not grow straight up out of the ground. Some of them grow cockeyed. When it rains, it doesn't just rain on the plants. It doesn't just rain on the grass. It rains wherever it rains. Like, it's just the rain's coming and it's going to hit whatever's underneath of it. If the wind's blowing, it's going to spread it even further out. Same with the snow. And when the fire starts in the forest, whether at a mountaintop or in a valley, it spreads and it doesn't care what's in its path. But those, even if you lose, it's just an opportunity to gain. Maybe it's about disconnecting from the mortal possessions and disconnecting from the mortal mindset to help you reconnect to your soul and realize what's more important. And you learn this through the journey. You're learning how to catch life's curveballs with one hand and throw it back out with the other without skipping a beat. The flip side of it, just to help you understand why it is that as the more your light grows, the more you battle. Like, obviously I told you with, like, you're doing the work and healing the wounds of your soul, so that way you're no longer bleeding out. Now you're healing and you're being restored. But you gotta remember, imagine yourself. You just created the candle, right? You have a little bit of light. What are you doing? You're holding it up like this. Holding it up like this. And guess what happens? Even though your mind is focused on growing this light and moving forward because you want to be able to see, there are people around you that don't want that. They don't want you to see their truth. They want to keep using you. They want to keep manipulating you. They don't want you to know what they've been up to. And then all of a sudden, when you get to that point and everything's done and you're looking back, you're like, oh, well, I guess karma already paid its visits and eliminated those that no longer serve the path that I'm on. And it's not to be egotistical. It's not to have an inflatable ego or anything like that. It just means that they're just not part of your journey right now. The hope is that they see what it took for you to get that peace of mind, to get that clarity, to be able to read the bullshit from 1,000 miles away and be like, oh, and know when to not speak and when to speak, knowing how to navigate, and they're just looked at you in awe, like, how do I get to that? Everybody has their moment when they're ready. And I tell people, and I told them over the years, and I had a couple people, because I would just sit there and say, because I would get the urge of where their mind is, and I would just say, don't read the Bible, don't read it. And they're like, oh, well, you're not supposed to say that, blah blah blah. I said, no, I can say what I want. You don't read the Bible because you feel like you're supposed to, you're required to. Like, all right, I'm going to go and have my fun, and I'm going to do this and do that and do what I want, and then I'll come back and read the Bible, and I'll be just ever. It doesn't work that way. You're not reading the Bible because it's somehow your way to buy you into whatever it is that you think you're going to get. It's not what it's about. Don't read the Bible because you feel like you have to. Don't read it because you have all of these so-called born-again Christians, these holier-than-thou people thinking they know everything. Like, that they knew everything, this world would be in such utter chaos, and I would not have had to be crucified again. But hey, here we are. It's part of the process, right? But the thing is you should be reading the Bible because you want to. You want to learn. You want to grow. You want to understand. What is it about? What can it help me see that I can't find anywhere else? There's people that, they'll be doing their prayers, and it's just part of like their day-to-day routine, and they're reading the Bible, and all of a sudden getting this urge to, like, I don't know, start researching astrology or law, or how to bake, or whatever the case may be. And they're just like getting, and all of a sudden this passion within them is growing for this path. And before you know it, they're like, I never imagined that I would be in this position on this path, doing what I'm doing and enjoying it and feeling so fulfilled. And the people that I've met, everybody's journey is different. Everybody's journey is different. Everybody. You could take any one verse out of the Bible and read it to 10 different people. And guess what? You're going to get 10 different perceptions of that one verse. Because those 10 people, even if they experience the same exact situation, they all perceive it differently. They all see it differently. They experienced it differently. They internalized it differently. No different than people and how they handle their emotions. Some just drop and pray and let it go. Some eat their emotions. Some people drink their emotions. Some people sleep as a means to process their emotions. Some people go out and just go for walks. Everybody is different and unique in how they process, interpret, and analyze things that are around them. It doesn't make anybody above or below. The goal is you want people to get that clarity so that they can live their best life and not be enslaved to whatever traumas or whatever emotions that they're harboring. And sometimes you don't realize what you're holding in until you're going through that process. And all of a sudden you realize, like, oh wow, I didn't realize that was still bugging me. I didn't realize that was still a thing. Like, you know what I mean? It's almost as if you absorb so much trauma that you don't realize how much you absorbed until you're doing the cleaning and the cleansing and the release. That's how it happens. That's how it happens. Like I said, I just wanted to pop on to get this done over with. My hope moving forward. This is the channel that I created because I wanted to find a way to communicate and connect with people. And I wanted to, be able to, have these conversations and, help you to better understand, what I mean? Sometimes, you find yourself juggling, trying to do this, trying to do that, and then your head's just going a mile a minute. And you just can't catch a break. So I'm actually going to step off here. Like I said, I already know what's coming. I already know what path everything that people are going to be going down. I'm not concerned because I know who I am. But what I will do is I'm going to leave you with something to help you neutralize. Even me being who I am, it's about connecting. A lot of people get caught up because they feel like, if they lose a child, like my child is not supposed to, I'm not supposed to outlive my child. Sometimes, people cross over because, their purpose is done here in this mortal realm and they're spiritually on the other side. Like they're still there. You just can't physically touch them. You know what I mean? Their soul is still there. You just can't physically touch them. But something that I do, and I still do it occasionally, it just helps to connect. Because it doesn't matter if you're 20 years old, 30 years old, 50 years old, 70 years old, 90 years old. You could be 110 years old. And you will always be somebody's baby. So, my little piece of advice for you is recite the Lord's Prayer when you're done your prayers and everything. And this is after all of that. When you're getting in bed at night and you're trying to just relax and just calm yourself, recite the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, just like that. Once you get to Amen, start the Hail Mary. Once you get to that Amen, go back and recite the Our Father and keep doing them back to back consecutively. You'll understand as you do it. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to explain it. Like, you'll feel it. Just take that leap of faith, even though you don't see, you may not see blood coming down my face. You may not see the crown of thorns like others have. You may not have seen me nailed to the cross. You may not have seen any of that. But even if you haven't seen it, walk by faith, not by sight. Keep that in mind. Just do it. You don't have to morally tell me anything. Like, I already know. So I'm going to know how it worked for you when I feel you get up in the morning or any part of the day that you wake up feeling more calm and more refreshed. And don't get me wrong, you're going to have moments where you kind of feel a little heavy. It's all about releasing the pressure. Just releasing the pressure. So I'm going to go ahead and get off here. I'll probably come back on, maybe tomorrow. Just trying to gauge it. So, and before anybody gets their panties in a bunch, there are people that were part of this behind closed doors over the years. So they had asked me to add a link to donate. So it's not a requirement. Follow your heart. When in doubt, go with the flow. I don't want you to feel obligated that you have to. Everybody is struggling. There's many people that are struggling right now, and everybody's asking, for X, Y, Z, and ABC. Follow your heart. When in doubt, go with the flow. Things have a way of working themselves out, and just remember, it's just this part of the cycle. Don't be afraid to give for fear that you're losing something. And it could be, giving somebody the benefit of the doubt. It could be, you know, giving somebody the opportunity to just be themselves. It could be, a multitude of things. Don't be afraid to let go. All right? So until next time, I wish you peace. I wish that a number of you will take the time and make the time to spend time on your knees so that you can begin releasing some of the anger and the hatred that you have within you. Because all it does is spread misery and pain. Isn't there enough of that? I will be coming on as often as I can. Don't be afraid to share, because you never know. You share this video or any of these videos with anyone, you may have just found somebody that already knows who I am. And they may not say it by saying, yes, that's him. It could be just a smile. Or maybe even shedding a few tears, knowing that it's done. So, until then, take that advice with your Father and Hail Mary prayers at night. Help you sleep. Help you start working to find that peace within yourself. Blessed be.